Yo, what's going on? It's Drnkie and welcome to Drnkie Indie. In this video, we're diving into the mind's shadowy depths as we explore who we are and solve the puzzles and platforms inside of our mind that stop us from breaking through and being our best self. Our goal here in Buy or Skip is that by the end of this video, you will have my opinion on enough information to know if you should buy or skip Shady Part of Me. If you enjoy this review while you're watching it and you want to help us out, leave a thumbs up and it helps other people find the channel and helps them find this video. If you enjoy the content here on Drnkie Indie and are new to the channel, subscribe so you can come back for more reviews and other indie game videos. This is Shady Part of Me, and here's my review. Shady Part of Me was published December 10th, 2020 by the publisher Focus Home Interactive and developed by the studio Douze Dixiemes. And before anybody hates me too hard in the comment section below, I know fully how much I am butchering that name of this developer. I am terribly sorry, I'm just an American trying to make reviews. Also, you can find this game on the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and on the PC in the Epic Game Store for around $14.99. Let's start the review with our first category, story. Like most gamers, I've played an absolute metric ton of platformers in my life, especially in the indie scene. There is something so compelling about a platformer's gameplay that there is a large number of platforms that really don't bother at all to tell much of a story. They'll make a quick minute-long motivation piece at the intro of a game before you do all your jumps and death-defying stunts, and then they won't really mention the story until a boss fight comes up. This could certainly be said to be the exact opposite for what happens in Shady Part of Me. You're hit with the story right away, and it's not really light at all. The story is being told from inside the head of the main character, and the art direction of the game kind of clues you in right away that what we're going to be dealing with in this story is going to be kind of serious and a little bit heavy. But what I find extremely interesting in this story is that you're never really told explicitly what you're dealing with emotionally with this character. Of course, there are some clues and a little bit of dialogue that directs you a small bit into the notion of what's going on, but the developer really leaves room for the player to fill in a lot of the gaps on their own with their own ideas, or maybe some of your own experiences. The game revolves around the main character and her shadow, and they're treated kind of as two separate characters. Both of them are voiced by the actress Hannah Mary, who some will remember as Gilly from Game of Thrones. People also told me she's from a show called Skins, but for me, Gilly from Game of Thrones is how I know her and how you'll more than likely know her too. This main character and her shadow are kind of played off each other throughout the entire game as they overcome their emotional distress. As you move along throughout the game, these two characters will often be talking out their part of the problem and to each other, as well as a doctor or therapist who is chiming in externally trying to push the character to make a breakthrough emotionally with whatever is going on. In addition to this dialogue, the story is being told all around you as a player. The background of the levels that you're playing through are all trying to tell you something if you're really paying attention to what's going on. The story is broken down into kind of a prologue and different acts, and each of these acts has its own setting from a mental ward to a carnival, and you even end up on a stage in front of people like you're at a play. The setting and the dialogue and even the puzzles themselves are really telling you a story here that as you play, you kind of just come to a stop and your head will kind of tilt as you kind of think about what you just played through. For being a small indie game and a short game at that, it packs a massive punch that feels like it's swinging way above its weight class, and I honestly feel this game absolutely lands in the story department. So I mentioned the art of this game a bit in the review already, but let's take it on fully with our next section and let's talk about graphics. I think one of the biggest standouts that will make you stop scrolling trying to look for a game, and just one of the best features of Shady Part of Me is the graphics. It made me stop and it made me pay attention when I was going through Epic's Game Store. All of the colors in this game are really muted and understated. Everything looks like it's been done on a canvas, sketched with a pencil, and then water painted over. It's mesmerizing when you're playing it, and I loved every part of it. The use of contrast and shadows in this game not only serves as a gameplay mechanic, but also makes every act you play in just pop and stand out in such a dramatic way. The characters in this game all have a personality within them. The shyness of your character is expressed through the design of her character with her hair just covering her face. The friendliness of the background characters that end up helping your character along are endearing, and their inviting look just make it feel natural when they start helping the player. Everyone in this game has this cutesy Tim Burton emo vibe that feels very familiar to you as a player and a gamer, but feels excitingly unique within the world that's built around them. In the end, this game, like very few games before, it captures a look that feels like you have opened a storybook that was meant for children, but now it's just a world that you get to play in. We recently reviewed the Bonfire 2 on the channel, and I had similar feelings to that. But what I think that this game has that Bonfire 2 did not is a level of artistic craftsmanship that just doesn't feel like it could be a children's book, but rather it feels like it is one and that you're just inside of it. This is one of the most fully realized styles I've ever seen in an indie game, and it's really setting the bar for what can be done visually when you're reaching for realistic graphics. It's kind of almost on the level of Oni. Playing through Shady Part of Me graphically was an absolute treat and worth the price of admission alone. We've talked about story and graphics. Let's move on to an aspect of this game that was surprisingly clever and really genuine: gameplay. So we have two different genres going on inside of Shady Part of Me. It's a puzzle game, and it's also a platformer at the same time. There are points in this game where these two things are separated, but many parts of this game, these two elements are blended together to really make your brain work and try to figure out how to move on to the next part of the map. Of course, throughout this entire game, you are playing as two separate characters, and for the most part, you can't really leave one or the other behind. As your main character moves forward in the area, so does your shadow have to come along with it. And while doing so, you're actually going to be solving different parts of the same puzzle while being in the shadow realm solving some of it, and then having to use the physical world to solve other parts of the same puzzle before you complete. It's all done really, really well. But let's break these two little genres in the side of the game down a little more. Let's first talk a bit about the puzzle aspect of the game. One of my favorite things that Shady Part of Me is doing is using its namesake as a massive part of the puzzle solving. So many times the puzzles that need to be solved are done so by creating a shadow, or moving a shadow, or even removing a shadow with your main character in the physical world. This is done by sliding blocks against various light sources that are scattered around the area. So for example, sliding a block in front of a light creates a shadow for your shadow form to be able to jump on that wasn't previously there. Some of these moments do become fairly obvious, while others are actually pretty brilliant, and you actually get a smile on your face with excitement once you figured it out. Whether it's creating a shadow bridge with a pillar or covering a dangerous hazard up for your shadow to cross, the use of shadow in this game is brilliantly done. So couple that brilliance that they do with the shadow, along with the main character not being able to step into direct sunlight, and the game does become very challenging at moments. The other side of this coin in Shady Part of Me is the platformer elements that are in this game. While not the most challenging platformer you'll ever pick up in your life, it does at certain times require a bit of finesse to dodge the prickly vines and jump across the gaps within the shadow realm that you play in. Additionally, there are a lot of interesting things going on with the perspectives during moments of this game that are filled with wonder as you didn't see them coming. When you're inside of the shadow realm and you jump from one ledge to another, you might be jumping over the corner of a wall. And as you go from the flat side of a wall down a hallway, so to speak, the perspective changes, and it's just really exciting when it happens. All around, the gameplay of Shady Part of Me is very creative and fulfilling to play through. I think a lot of games that want to explore and evoke thoughts from the players kind of do it at the expense of having fun gameplay. This isn't the case here. Douze Dixiemes are extremely skilled and wonderfully clever in all the gameplay elements that they have crafted for you as the player. The gameplay being as good as it is, and it really standing out to me as one of the best parts of this game after I got done playing it, was a fairly big shock to me, but an absolute welcome surprise that I can't wait for other people to play through. Next up, let's talk about sound. It's hard for me to overstate how much I actually enjoyed the soundtrack for this game. As good as the graphics are in this game, the soundtrack holds up against it just as well, and at times surpasses it when it comes to pulling you into Shady Part of Me. On the surface, you have this whimsical indie feeling soundtrack that is sprinkled with piano melodies and synthwave strokes. Behind that, layered underneath it, are thick bass guitar just thumes that rumble you as the player as you move through the shadows of the main character's thoughts. Occasionally, these lofty vocal, little simple notes are played over top. This whole thing really, oddly enough, made me kind of think of the Garden State soundtrack. The sound effects in this game are really fantastic and fitting also. Everything feels like it sounds just right. I'm not sure why a balloon popping in a cartoon should feel different than one popping in real life, but it should, and in this game, they nailed it, and I loved it. My only knock on this game would be in the vocals department when it comes to the sound. While Hannah Mary does an excellent job in the normal sounding character when she's just normally speaking, her young squeaky sounding self at times comes off a little bit piercing and took me out of the game at various moments. As tight and as balanced as everything in this game feels, something about this voice stood out enough to make me put it into the review. I don't know what it was, but it is noticeable. Overall, the sound of this game is excellent, and its soundtrack is especially a highlight for me after I got done playing this game.
Is this what you want?
Finally, let's move on to our last category in the review, replayability. The game, when it comes down to it, is fairly short. Clocking in around 4.5 hours of gameplay when you come to the end of Shady Part of Me, you'll feel like you did get your money's worth in terms of what they delivered, but you may also feel like you want more. For those completionists out there, every level of this game is replayable, and you can select which part of the act you wish to play through again. The reason that this is important is that there are origami birds littered throughout this platformer. Each one of these birds, as you collect it, comes along with a bit of dialogue to help tell the tale of your therapy sessions and the conversations you have with your therapist and even yourself. I'm not entirely sure what these birds are supposed to mean within the story, but they are there for you to collect, and at times they're very difficult to get. So while I don't think this game is going to become some speedrun juggernaut of replayability, I do see people coming back to collect all these little doodads that they've missed through their first playthrough. Buy or skip, Shady Part of Me. When I found Shady Part of Me on the game store, I really didn't know what to expect. From the initial screenshots of the game and the trailer, I knew the game looked unique enough to be given a chance. But what I found inside of it was really special. The developer, one more time, Douze Dixiemes, their take on the puzzle platformer was quite clever, and their use of shadow not only as a gameplay mechanic, but also a story element for you, the player, and your character in the game to overcome at the same time was nothing short of brilliant. So if you're looking for a short indie game that can be finished in one sitting, and that excels in every part of its design, then I think you should absolutely buy Shady Part of Me.
She was afraid of the sun.
Alright, that's the review for Shady Part of Me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, we are an Epic partner, so if you guys do purchase this game off of the Epic Game Store, make sure you use our creator code Drnkie to help support the channel. That's all I got. Here's some other cool stuff that I've done here on YouTube if you want to check that out. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope it helped you in making your decision. And I'll see you guys next week for our review of Airborne Kingdom, I think we're doing next. Alright, see you guys then.